Let's get to one of our most important guests of the day, Ken Gutman, the superintendent of Walled Lake Schools. Thank you for being with us.
Always great to be here, Ronnie. Nice to see you and Tyler this morning, and it was great to see Deb Macon, a good friend for a long time. She's really good at promoting what's an excellent opportunity for everyone in the community too. It's so nice to hear her speak.
I will tell you, I sat on the cable commission with Deb. She is a talker.
She's good at it.
We enjoy your new background. Are you back in your office?
You know, I've been in my office, but I've been using the Walled Lake Schools background, and so now I'm just going with more of the real background. Now, I've been back in my office for, the second the quarantine was over, I came right back.
Well, with that, we have to say, I've been thinking about you and the other superintendents this past week when the CDC came out with its new guidelines regarding the Safe Return to Learning program. When you get those guidelines, and it comes after the governor has already been pretty much pushing for everyone to do in-person learning by March 1st, what do those guidelines even mean to you and your team?
Well, I understand that it's important for us to have guidelines, but they keep changing, and I think that's the frustrating part. We've been back for a while, and we were back well prior, obviously, to March. And those guidelines can be confusing at times. Ultimately, we want to keep people safe. We do believe we have a great safety plan that we worked on last year. And so we look at those guidelines, we see how they match up with what we're doing, and we make decisions that err on the side of safety.
But you also look at some of the guidelines, too, and you're like, why are they coming out with them so late? Because it was like within the first week of Biden's new administration that they were pushing for in-person learning. Yeah,
Ronnie, exactly. And you can't do 6 feet of social distancing in most schools in this country. They weren't built for that. And so if you want to have a full return to school, you're not going to have 6 feet of distance between people, for example.
But one of the things that I enjoy, we speak with so many superintendents here on the MegaCast, but superintendents such as yourself, you know your school, you know your district. Listen to you. Like, you're not the health expert, but you also know your district. But when these new guidelines come out and they make headlines, can that put a wrinkle in the communication efforts that you're trying to relay to your parents and to the students?
Safe to assume that was rhetorical, Ronnie?
Right. Read between the lines of my question.
I think you knew the answer before you asked it.
Look, at the end of the day, it's like we have to put trust in our local school superintendents in our school districts, because you guys know your districts, right? And to have someone sitting in DC who has never stepped foot in your school district, who's putting out these guidelines, or even someone in Lansing for that matter, it's like, this is the reality. And we know that there is a gap between policy and the reality of what happens in our school district. At every single school district, at every single school building is different. And I think you guys are really, truly the unsung heroes throughout this entire pandemic, because you've also been kind of the target, I guess I will say, for people who don't agree with what you're doing. And it's like you're in a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, we've been in a lose-lose for about a year now, and we've certainly been the target. But I would dispute the any kind of notion of us being unsung heroes. The unsung heroes are the people in the classrooms, in the schools, working day to day with children. Our teachers are the unsung heroes. Our parents who are going through this are unsung heroes. We make decisions that anger people, but there's no hero to that. That's part of the job. It comes with being a superintendent. It comes with being an administrator. Our job is to make the best decision we can with the latest information and the newest information, and then the newest information. And we should take the arrows as well. So I'm really grateful for what happens in our classrooms. That's really where the power is.
And, the beautiful thing is really to focus on the kids and their learning. And the news came out this week that the federal government is going to require the standardized testing, which is the M-STEP here in the state of Michigan. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a joke, if I could not sugarcoat it. I think that our kids need to be learning now, not testing. And people talk about learning loss, but now we have less time to teach. So it's frustrating. There are companies that are going to make a lot of money giving tests, but it's also, the ruling also stated that there's no accountability behind those tests. So we're now going to test children and it won't count for anything. Why are we spending the time, the money, the resources to test kids when our local assessments suffice? We know that what we do locally, our benchmark assessments, our local assessments are great. We know we can assess our kids' needs locally. We don't need to spend days and hours and weeks testing for a test that doesn't count.
You know what I love about this show is we're able to actually have long-form interviews and conversations with people such as yourself, because when I first saw this headline, I was, of course, why wouldn't they? We need a benchmark on what everyone is calling the learning loss throughout the pandemic. But now listening to you, you're saying, hey, there are already those benchmarks in place. This is a waste of time and money.
That's correct. We have local assessments. We've long had local assessments. And there's too much of an emphasis on standardized testing, on M-STEP, on MEEP previously. I don't know, Ronnie and Tyler, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you remember your scores on those tests? I mean, did they change? Did they alter your life? They're one. I won't even ask you to answer.
Actually, you're. I'm going to date myself. I grew up in Ohio, so that was before then. So we, for us it was the MSAT, the ASAT, no ACT. And the going into college, but we didn't have high school back in my day, so that means I'm old.
I do remember the MEEP test, and what I remember specifically about it was having the feeling of being the road runner. MEEP, get me out of here. This is terrible.
Well,
so yes.
There you go, Tyler. And look, the ACT, SAT, all of that, I get it. It's important. Universities use it. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some form of standardized testing. I'm not that person. I believe there can be. It's just the amount of time that we take to give these tests and the emphasis that's placed on them. And we're measuring children based on 1 day, 1 week in time. That's not the best way to assess people. The best way is to use our local assessments and understand over time how they're doing. So I think we're better able to do that locally. I'm disappointed in the decision, but we will abide by it and make it known to our community what the options are.
Ken Gutman with us here on the MegaCast. He's the superintendent for Walled Lake Consolidated School District. With that, can you explain to me a little bit more, as someone who doesn't have kids in the district, about your local benchmarks that you are trying to follow to gauge where the kids are right now? Because we do know that most kids are experiencing some type of learning loss throughout the pandemic.
They are. It's hard to measure. We do have a series of locally developed assessments. Walled Lake's long been a leader in that. And our assessments, prior to me being here as well, our assessments really measure what we teach as opposed to something outside of what's in our curriculum. And our curriculum's a relevant, rigorous curriculum. So those are locally developed through our curriculum department and others, exams and assessments. And they give us a better sense of how our children are doing than standardized tests, which are developed elsewhere.
How are you administering that benchmark, and where are you in trying to figure out where kids are right now?
Well, we administer them on an ongoing basis. Where are we? I think we're at a point right now where we're concerned. We know there are more D's and E's on report cards than there have been before. And at the same time, there are some anomalies. So it's hard to measure when we have some students who are at home. And I can tell you, I'll give you one anomaly. Our kindergarten scores for students who were at home were higher than they've been in several years. I don't know what to make of that. And out of good intention, were people at home helping out? I don't know. But we'll have a better sense when our students return to us in the fall, and we can have a full year of assessing locally as opposed to this hit and miss year. We've been in school, asynchronous, synchronous, out of school. There's been no consistency, and certainly we're concerned. We're also particularly concerned because we know our most vulnerable students are most likely to be negatively affected by this pandemic.
And what's so hard about this, every school district can be a bit different in its location and the members that it serves, but at the end of the day, this is about our kids and our future and getting them back on track to where they need to be. So with that, Some days don't take this like I might make it sound, but I feel like you're just juggling like a ton of balls at one time. Like, is it just like this act where you're constantly juggling everything and all of the issues that are going on in the pandemic that we haven't experienced, and even 11 months into this, where does it come to an end to where you can put the balls down and get back to the basics?
I would love to have the answer to where it ends. I don't know. And maybe I would categorize it as more organized juggling. We know what the issues are. And the difficulty is that this is the first time experience for all of this. And so I'm really proud. We have a great staff here and great parents and great community. And I recognize we've upset people and I understand why they're upset. But I do know that everyone's fully aware of what the issues are. And we're doing our best to make the best decisions we can. I'd love for it to end soon. I would like to look at the trends right now and think we're the trajectory of cases, of deaths, the trajectory of the number of people getting vaccinated. I would like to think that the end is a lot closer than the beginning.
Let's all hope, right? Hey, with that, I believe you guys are still in a hybrid situation?
We are at the secondary level. So at the elementary level, we have students back 5 days a week in person. Our students at the elementary level also have a synchronous and an asynchronous option. At the secondary level, we still have a synchronous and an asynchronous option, but then we also have an AABB schedule. So it's sort of a hybrid, except that, and this is tough on our teachers, when our students are in school, they're with the teacher and there are students on the screen. When they're not in school, they're the ones on the screen, and the teacher's teaching the same lesson. So it's difficult for our teachers. They're doing a great job with it. Bless them for everything they're doing. It's a different teaching situation. So our students are actually getting 5 days of instruction. 2 to 3 are in person.
So when we come to the teacher side of this component, are they having to do basically 2 different plans per se, right?
No.
So they're doing the same one all the time then?
Yeah, I mean, look, our teachers are so good at teaching 4 plans at a time anyway, but as a rule, with secondary teachers with this model are teaching, they can teach, should they choose, it's difficult, the same lesson for those on the screen and those in class. And that doesn't mean they are every day, and yeah, the planning is a lot more difficult than it is. Think about even the little things like handing out a paper, right? You have half the class on the screen. There's so much more to this. So the logistics are insane is probably the right word. And again, bless our teachers for it. But that is something that is a better model, we think, so students are getting 5 days of seeing their teacher if they choose.
And what's been the reaction from the public?
Mixed. It does seem like a lot of people are upset. I know they are, and they have a right to be. None of us want the situation we have. I will tell you that superintendents I talked to in this county, in the state, and across the nation are experiencing the same volume of people who are unhappy, and yet a number of people respond and send emails and call and say, thank you. You're managing this the way, I guess the best way anybody could manage it. We don't take the praise too much to heart. We want to continue to get better. We know that we wish we could start this whole thing over and we might do some things differently, and that's part of the planning for the future. Next pandemic, we'll be ready. But,
let's hope we don't go through a next pandemic,
no,
but you're right, though, right?
I would hope not.
This was not in the emergency preparedness plan at all.
Yeah, we're ready for fire drills. We're ready for lockdown drills. We're ready for evacuation drills. But no, nobody had a pandemic preparedness plan for schools to the extent that we would ever have needed one.
Ken Gutman with us here on the MegaCast. He's the superintendent for the Walled Lake School District, and we always appreciate having you on with us as well. And as we go into this new year and this new springtime, we're looking ahead to trying to get back to some type of normalcy, if that is even going to return to us anytime soon. They're saying we could be required to wear a mask until 2022. When you hear those headlines, how do they impact you as a superintendent and the decisions you make?
we follow those guidelines, and we do require masks in schools, and we do try to give mask breaks when it's possible. But I guess from my perspective, when the science is telling us wear a mask, and look, I've also heard from a number of people who don't believe that that's the case. We are following the mask mandate right now, and I guess if I could tell you that, and this is my goal, to get everybody back in school in person in the fall, for sure, with a virtual option. If mask wearing is the way to do it, then let's get everybody back in school and wear masks.
I love that. And I've seen it's typically the youngest kids, the ones that we thought were not going to be able to follow this, that are the best at it.
They are, for some kids, it's their first school experience. They don't know anything different. And yet there are those with sensory issues and other issues that mask wearing is difficult. It's particularly difficult. So, we want to be sensitive to them as well. Personally, look, I don't enjoy it. I'm sure you don't enjoy it. But if it keeps people safe and keeps us safe, that's what we'll do.
So with that, before we let you go, of course, this past week, well, we are experiencing beautiful weather today. Well, 40 degrees and sunshine in Michigan is beautiful. It's all relative, right?
Michigan. You're from the Midwest. You're from Ohio. Tyler's from Michigan. If you think 40 and sunny is beautiful weather, you definitely didn't grow up in the South.
Right? Exactly. I did go to college in the South, though. And I will say, when we talk about this, though, with the weather, snow days, there have been some school districts that have been virtual school districts that have kind of gotten a bit of a backlash for having virtual snow days. But as I believe you explained to us before, there's a lot into the determination of a snow day, even if people are somewhat virtual.
Absolutely. First of all, in this year where everyone has struggled, if we have a snow day, there will be no instruction on that day. Everyone could use a break.
Yes.
And we're going to all take a snow day. Well, I probably won't, but it'll be really quiet around here, so it's kind of like a snow day. The fact is, our students, our staff could use a snow day as well. So if we have a snow day, that first one at least, and maybe the first couple, there will be no instruction. And we're going to let everybody have that sense of normalcy for that day. Following that, we'll see what happens. I mean, yes, there are logistics to work out. I know there are districts talking about never having snow days again, but there are logistics. That would mean that every staff member has to make sure they have everything home every night in the winter, just so they're ready for the next day of teaching if they have to go virtual. That's just one of the issues that we would have to deal with. It's not something, it's something we will talk about, but right now everyone could probably use a snow day.
Right. Look, we've earned a day off. But on top of that, too, it's like you said, I mean, you take home your computers, but then the kids have to take home their computers, and there's so much that goes into it. And while we love to rely on our local weather people, as someone who used to do weather, I'd like to say, yes, they like to be accurate. However, they're not always accurate.
Yeah, snow days are always tricky, and I think we've talked about it, but I remember several years ago calling a snow day one night, and there wasn't any snow on the ground. And you want to talk about placing your trust in the meteorologist. I was so happy to see it snowing when I woke up in the morning. You have no idea. It was just blind faith, and I was so thankful. And look, we've messed up calls too, right? I mean, we've all made bad calls as superintendents where we call a snow day, and not as much snow came. But you do the best you can. There are a number of us who meet with the meteorologist to make the decision, and that's been really helpful.
So I will say, I'm wondering, or I'm imagining, how kids the night before, they think snow is coming. They do those little rituals where they turn around 10 times, put their pajamas on backwards, and put ice cubes in the toilet. Is there such a tradition for superintendents as well?
I will tell you that actually for superintendent, snow days are not a joyous event. That it is almost like when you think about this pandemic, you're guaranteed to upset about half the people when you call a snow day. And it's about half. We receive calls and emails saying, thank you for calling the snow day. It was a good call. And and the other half saying, what are you thinking?
Right.
And, go ahead.
And people have to remember, people live in different regions too. And so some require the buses down dirt roads that aren't paved and it's more treacherous and versus the ones that are 2 blocks away that can walk there.
But we're one of the largest districts in the state, student population-wise, and we also have 55 square miles. So what's happening in White Lake may not be happening in West Bloomfield or Novi, and so or Farmington Hills. We have there. So it can be a difficult call depending on the geography of the area.
Well, we always appreciate having you on with us. We so appreciate it. But also, I know these are tough times. It's tough to continue to navigate them, but thank you to you. But more importantly, thank you again to your team. And we should also give a shout out to the bus drivers that are having to navigate this. I was talking to a bus driver over the weekend, and she was saying how her day went to 16-hour days and the new challenges that the bus drivers have as well. And I know we've talked about it consistently with you about the need for substitute teachers, but also there is also a need for bus drivers as well.
There's a shortage, and we certainly are grateful for the work of our bus drivers, our secretaries, our paraeducators, everyone who works in this district, our custodial staff. They're working harder this year than they ever have, and those jobs are really hard to fill. So we're really grateful for their hard work.
So anyone out there, please apply, especially retired people. If you're sitting around, now is a great time to get back to your community. King Gutman with us here on the MegaCast. We appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.